on.
Hello. Good morning. Dobry dan. I'm really nervous right now, so I'm trying to look really cool and composed, but I'll try my best. My grandma told me that to be successful in life, I have to look pretty, find a successful man to marry, and be the best wife that I can be. I didn't really listen. When I went to school, my teachers told me that to be successful in life, I have to study really hard and to do really well in my exams to be successful in life. I didn't listen either. So today, I'm going to share a very, very important message from my heart that's very close to my heart. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Clicker's not working. Yay! Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to start by telling you a story of a little girl from Klang. So for those of us here who are not from Malaysia, you'll be wondering, where on earth is Klang? So that's the little girl from Klang. And as you can see, she has this really strange obsession with red color and everything red. And this is her at a birthday party back in the 1980s. Don't worry, I won't give my age away. And yeah, she's the first granddaughter in the family, and her grandmother, her aunts, they would doll her up and make her look pretty, but at the same time, she's not afraid to get into shorts and jump into her flip-flops and run out into the streets with her neighborhood friends. And climb trees and jump into rivers. So yes, she's a really interesting character. And when she went to school, a little, if you can see in this picture here, all these children who are raising their hands. This is not her. She does not raise her hands, not in school. You see this picture here, it's so unrealistic because they're smiling while they're doing their homework. I don't know if anybody does that these days, but yes, she does not smile when she's doing her homework. This is more what it looks like for her. And this is her as well, during class. As soon as the teacher walks into the classroom, all she hears is blah, 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 and then she wanders off into daydream land, and she's looking out the window, and she's not really in tune with what's happening in class. This is what her English reading class looks like. Because when it's Fridays, what they do is the teacher will come in and they will get everybody to take turns to read a passage or a sentence from a script or a textbook. And she knows that she can't do it, so she times herself really well to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. And she will sit it out in the bathroom till she knows that it's past her turn. It was a really hard 11 years for her in school because she was often seen and branded as being extremely stupid and lazy because she could not make the grades in class. And so her teachers, bless them, they tried really hard to motivate her. And so they said, look here, if you don't pass your term exam, you will have to stand on the chair the whole term till the next term exam. And if you pass that term exam, you can sit down for the rest of the term. And if you don't, you have to stand on the table for the whole term. So needless to say, I had a really wide bird's eye view of the whole classroom, standing on the table and the chair for many years of my school life. This little girl from she studied really hard. She poured in many hours into preparing for exams, and during her finals, she passed miraculously. I don't know how that happened, but she passed. And on the last day of her school, as she was walking out of the school gate, she stopped, she turned around, and she had a glimpse of the school for the last time. And she said to herself, something's not right. Something is wrong with this. I don't think it's supposed to be this way. And one day I'm going to come back here and I'm going to teach these people how to do it properly. So she left. And the first thing she did was she enrolled in a teacher training college to figure out how the whole process of teaching and learning happens. How does it work? How is it supposed to work? Because she was so determined to find out what went wrong. And so when she went to teacher training college, she taught herself, while learning to teach reading, she taught herself how to read at the age of 19. Imagine sitting for your finals exam, memorizing everything when you can't read. And so she went on. She was really happy with what she did. She went on, she did her bachelor's, she did her master's, and during her master's, she met this most amazing professor who came up to her, and because she's been observing her for a while, and she noticed that they had very similar note-taking skills and learning skills, and she said, "Are you dyslexic by any chance?" And this girl was like, "What is that?" And so she did some research and found out that, yup, she is dyslexic. And the professor is also dyslexic as well. And so with some research, she found out that statistics shows that 1 in 5 of us struggle with dyslexia. For those of us here who don't understand what dyslexia is, it is a learning difference. I refuse to call it a learning difficulty because we don't have difficulties learning. We just learn differently from everybody else. And so 1 in 5 of us have it. So imagine if you're in a classroom with 50 people, 10 of you will be dyslexic. Imagine if you have a family of 5, 1 of you will likely be dyslexic. So it's a huge number of people out there who are all struggling to read and write. And I was like, I'm so relieved. I'm not the only strange one who is branded as lazy and stupid, even though I worked so hard just to get the grades that I need. So she graduated and she started teaching, 16 years of teaching, and she found herself in the most prestigious international private preschools in Singapore, in Hong Kong. And shortly after she finished her master's, she was headhunted, and she was university lecturer. She was training teachers. She does a lot of in-house training for preschool teachers as well. And if you think that that's not enough work for her to do, she went and published not just 1 or 2, but 3 books, and they're on Amazon. And she came up with her own podcast because she decided that if she can train teachers, she definitely can train parents as well. And her podcast to date has over 150,000 downloads on iTunes. And as of 5 years ago, she decided to go into international speaking. And she appears in many international conferences, spreading all over Europe and US as well. And in this picture here, it was taken 3 years ago in Belgrade, a teachers conference. And she is the shortest person there, being the only Asian and the only Asian speaker. She's the shortest there. And they didn't have a stage or a podium. And so she was struggling to see the audience at the back, and they couldn't see her as well. So she climbed up on the table and she just spoke to the audience from there. And she could maintain eye contact and look at all the people sitting in the back row. And so, yeah, there's not many things that she would let get in her way. And as of 2017, She appeared in half a dozen magazines, and she was called Asia's Premier Parenting Coach, winning awards for Best Parent Education and Support Services. Thank you. And now she's a happy mom, single mom of 2 boys. And this is what she does. She's world schooling her 2 boys. So they travel 10 months a year, depending on where the international conferences take them. And they all have their own businesses, all 3 of them. They all have their own businesses. And they are owning their stage, and they're doing what they do best. A lot of people used to ask me, how do you do this? How can you come from a really poor family in a town that nobody knows of and find yourself in the audience of the world, literally? And so, being brought up Chinese, the Chinese people would say, oh, it's luck. So it's a 50-50 chance. If you have luck, if the stars align for you, then yes, you would make it. But you know, we don't have luck, so you know, we don't have such luxuries. But I doubt it. Having worked in Singapore for 6 years, and Hong Kong for 12 years, and China for 3 years, that culture, the very competitive culture, they look at me and they say, oh, you know, she's made it because she's competitive. But I don't think I'm competitive because I don't really care what everybody else is doing. I can't even compare myself to them because I'm different, and I feel that everybody's different. So most of the time, I don't really think it is about being competitive. I think it is about resilience. And I'm going to explain to you the concept of resilience. If you look in the dictionary, or if you do a Google search on the definition of resilience, it will tell you something like the ability to bounce back, to regain its original form. So in my mind, I think of it a little bit like a stress ball. If you hold on to a stress ball and you squeeze it, it runs out of shape. But as soon as you let it go, it gets back to its original form. That's how a lot of people define resilience. I don't look at it that way. I see resilience a little bit like this, rock climbing. So with every challenge and difficulty and failure that you encounter, you learn from it, and it gets you further, higher up, closer to your goal. It doesn't get you back to where you started. So this is the definition of resilience to me. I'm going to share with you 3 things that you would need to take into consideration if you'd really like to learn how to be resilient or to develop your resiliency. The first one is you need to figure out where your strengths lies, because we are all different, we are all unique, and we all have different strengths. We all have different gifts, if you want to call it that way, and we all have our own attitude. Sir Ken Robinson calls it element. So you need to find out what your element is, and you need to work really hard to develop those skills or those gifts, because it's very likely that if you don't and you just do what everybody else does, then you're going to have potential that you never know. Secondly, it's really important to hang out with the right crowd. From my experience, I believe that we become the 5 people we hang out with the most. So if you hang out with people who are complaining and whinging and whining and blaming everybody for the position that they're in, it's not really helpful. But if you want to be progressive, if you want to find where your strength lies, you want to do better than you did yesterday, you want to be a better person than yesterday, you need to find a crowd who will do the same thing, who encourages that as well. Lastly, be brave. Be brave to make mistakes. In my culture, in this culture where I grew up in, mistakes are punished. If you make a mistake, oh, you're not following instructions. You're not being obedient. You're not being compliant. But the problem with that is, if you are always looking to someone to give you instructions and to tell you how to think and what to think, then you're not going to get very far in life. Because a lot of things in life, you're going to have to make a lot of very tough decisions, and you're going to have to own it, can't run away from it. So be brave to face all of that, and to take on challenges, and to try and step outside of the box. And the problem is, when you do that, when you try something different, when you push for something that you really want to do, people are going to get in your way, because we are very social beings. And that's why being in the right crowd is important. They will get in the way and they'll question you, and they'll say, why are you being so difficult? Why can't you just do what your brother does, or do what your mom did, and just be a teacher, and just be a this, or do this, or get married, or have children? Why don't you just do what normal people do? And if you really want to get far in life, you have to put your foot down and own it and say, no, this is not what I want. I'm sorry, but this is my life, and these are the decisions that I'm making. Bad or good, I'm going to own it. And so, yes, this is the important things that, these are the important things in life that I want to teach to my boys. And I always tell them that they can make as many mistakes as they want. I have no problem with that. But the only thing is that they shouldn't make the same mistakes twice, because that shows that they didn't learn from their mistakes at all. And I think that we should all embrace mistakes as learning opportunities. Now, before I end my time here, I'm going to share a poem with you by Maya Angelou. And I've memorized this, but I don't trust my memory, so I'm just going to read it. And just so you know, I struggle with reading too today, so just be a little bit patient with me if I misquote this. I'm not going to read the whole poem, but I'm going to pull out a few verses that I absolutely love, that resonates with me, and I hope that it will resonate with you as well. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll arise. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of the tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Thank you, everyone. Bye.